lawyer stood in my doorway and said my name like he had already decided something. "Ms. Carter." I nodded. He handed me a sealed envelope. Heavy paper. Cream-colored? The kind people use when they want something to last longer than a conversation. "I'm here on behalf of your grandmother," he said. A pause. "There are instructions that require your acknowledgement." I didn't take it right away. Not because I didn't want it. Because I already knew what it meant. 72 hours earlier, I had been standing in a funeral home while my mother pulled my hand away like it didn't belong to her. I took the envelope. Felt the weight of it settle into my palm. "Is there anything I should know before I open it?" I asked. He watched me carefully. Not curious. Assessing. "Only that your grandmother was very specific," he said. A pause. "And very clear." I nodded. Of course she was. I stepped aside and let him in. He didn't move past the entryway. Didn't sit. Didn't make himself comfortable. That told me this wasn't a conversation. It was a delivery. I broke the seal slowly. Not dramatic. Just deliberate. The paper slid out clean. 2 pages. Typed. Precise. I read the first line. Then the second. Then I stopped. Not because I didn't understand. Because I did. Completely. I felt something shift. Not relief. Not vindication. Clarity. The kind that arrives without asking permission. I folded the paper once. Carefully. Looked back up at the lawyer. "I understand," I said. He nodded. "Then you know what happens next," he replied. I held his gaze. Yes. A pause. "I do." And that was the moment. The exact moment. When everything they said about me stopped mattering. 3 days earlier, the room had been full. Not loud. Funeral rooms rarely are. But full in the way silence becomes heavier when more people share it. My grandmother's casket stood at the front. Closed. She had asked for that. No viewing. No performance. Just presence. I stood near the back at first. Not hiding. Not stepping forward. Just placing myself where I always had in that family. Close enough to belong. Far enough not to interrupt. My mother saw me before I saw her. I felt it. That shift in attention that doesn't need sound. When I turned, she was already walking toward me. Not fast. Not slow. Direct. She didn't smile. She didn't soften her expression. She reached for my hand. And for a second I thought she was going to hold it. She didn't. She pulled it away. Firm. Controlled. Like removing something from the wrong place. "You don't belong here," she said. Not loudly. But clear enough. Clear enough for the people standing closest to hear. And for the ones farther away to notice the silence that followed. I looked at her. Not shocked. Not yet. Just trying to understand what she thought she was correcting. "I'm here for Grandma," I said. My voice was steady. Quieter than hers. She shook her head slightly. "No," she replied. A pause. "You're here because you always take..." The word sat there. Not loud. But shaped. Defined. People shifted around us. Not stepping in. Not stepping away. Just adjusting. My brother stood near the front. Hands in his pockets. Watching. Not moving. My sister looked down at her phone. Not typing. Just avoiding. "She wouldn't have wanted this," my mother continued. A pause. "Not from you." I didn't answer immediately. Because I was still trying to place the sentence inside something that made sense. "I took care of her," I said. She let out a short breath. Not a laugh. Not quite. "You sat with her," she said. A pause. "That's not the same thing." Silence. The kind that asks someone else to step in. No one did. Then she said it. The sentence that would stay. "Stop pretending," she added. "You're a leech." A pause. "Not worth a single dollar." The words landed differently than the first ones. Sharper. More defined. Because they weren't about the moment. They were about identity. I felt the shift in the room. Not loud. But real. The kind that happens when people decide what they're allowed to agree with by staying quiet. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't step closer. I just looked at her. Then at the people around us. Then back at her. I'm here because she asked me to be, I said. She shook her head again. No, she replied. You're here because you think there's something left for you. There it was. Clear now. Not grief. Not anger. Assumption. Measurement. I felt something inside me settle. Not collapse. Settle. Into place. I'm not here for that, I said. She didn't respond. She reached for my arm again. This time not to pull my hand. To guide me. Away. Then leave, she said. A pause. Because you don't belong here. I looked at her hand on my sleeve. Then at her face. Then at the room. My brother didn't look at me. My sister still hadn't lifted her eyes. No one intervened. No one corrected her. I nodded once. Not agreement. Acknowledgement. Then I stepped back. Out of her reach. And I left. No argument. No scene. Just absence. The house felt different when I came back that afternoon. Not empty. Stripped. The kind of quiet that follows something being decided without you. My suitcase was already by the door. Packed. Not carefully. Efficiently. My mother stood in the kitchen. My brother leaned against the counter. My sister sat at the table. No one looked surprised to see me. That was the second realization. This had been planned. We thought it was best, my mother said. I didn't ask what it meant. I already knew. You've taken enough from this family, she continued. A pause. It's time to move on. I looked at the suitcase. Then at them. What exactly have I taken, I asked. My brother shifted slightly. Didn't answer. My sister glanced up briefly. Then back down. My mother stepped closer. Time, she said. A place. A pause. Energy that should have gone to people who contribute. There it was again. Contribution. Measured. Defined. Reduced. I worked, I said. She shook her head. You helped, she corrected. A pause. That's different. Silence. Then she added, You didn't build anything. I didn't respond. Because this wasn't about facts. It was about narrative. And theirs had already been decided. Take your things, she said. Go. No anger. No emotion. Just instruction. I nodded. Walked to the door. Picked up the suitcase. It was heavier than it should have been. Not because of what was inside. Because of what it represented. I didn't look back. Not at the kitchen. Not at them. Because there was nothing left to confirm. By the time I reached the driveway, I understood something clearly. They weren't pushing me out. They had already placed me outside. I just hadn't stepped into it yet. 72 hours later, the lawyer stood in my doorway and handed me something they had never accounted for. I folded the document again, carefully, placed it back into the envelope, then set it on the table. And for the first time since the funeral, I smiled. He didn't leave right away. That was the part I noticed after I folded the document. Most people deliver something like that and step back. They let the moment belong to the person receiving it. He stayed. Not intruding. Just present. You'll want to read the second page again, he said. I nodded. I will. A pause. Is there anything time-sensitive, I asked. He shook his head slightly. Not urgent, he said. A pause. But there are expectations. I understood that. There are always expectations when something is left behind. Thank you for bringing it, I said. He nodded once, then stepped back toward the door, paused, and added something he hadn't said yet. She trusted you, he said. Not formal. Not part of the delivery. Just stated. Then he left. The door closed softly. No echo. No dramatic wait. Just quiet. I stood there for a moment, not moving. Then I walked to the table, sat down, and opened the envelope again. This time I read slowly, line by line, not scanning, not searching, letting each sentence settle. The first page was structured. Legal language. Clean. Clear. My grandmother's estate. Her home. Her accounts. Nothing excessive. Nothing surprising. Until the end, where everything shifted. The property wasn't being divided. It wasn't being distributed in equal shares. It was being placed. Under management. One person responsible. One person with discretion. One person with final say. My name. I read it twice. Then again. Not because I doubted it. Because I needed to understand what it meant beyond the words. The second page was different. Not legal. Personal. Typed but less formal. No headings. No structure. Just her voice translated into sentences. If you're reading this, she wrote, then I assume things went exactly the way I expected. I stopped there for a moment. Looked at the page. Then continued. They will misunderstand you, she wrote. They always have. Not out of cruelty. Out of habit. A pause in the paragraph. They measure things differently. Another line break. You don't. I exhaled slowly. Not emotional. Recognizing. She had always seen patterns more clearly than people. That's what made her difficult to argue with. And impossible to ignore. I kept reading. I've left the house in your care, she wrote. Not because you need it. Because you understand it. A pause. You know what it takes to keep something running when no one notices it. I looked around my apartment. Small. Organized. Everything in its place. Nothing excessive. She was right. That's what I had always done. Maintained. Supported. Sustained. Without asking to be seen. Without expecting to be measured. Another line. Do not give it away out of guilt. I paused again. That one was sharper. More direct. They will come to you differently now. That line settled deeper. Because I already knew it was true. They will speak in softer tones. Use words like family and fairness. Another pause. They will forget what they said. You shouldn't. I leaned back in the chair. Let the paper rest on the table. Not overwhelmed. Not vindicated. Aligned. Everything that had felt unclear 3 days ago had shape now. Not because anything had changed. Because something had been revealed. I picked up my phone. Scrolled through the messages I hadn't answered. 3 missed calls from my brother. 1 from my sister. None from my mother. That didn't surprise me. She wouldn't call until she had something to say that sounded controlled. That's how she operated. I didn't call back. Not yet. Instead, I went to the window. Looked out at the parking lot. Same cars. Same afternoon light. Nothing outside had shifted. That's how these things work. Change happens inside structure. Not in the visible parts. My phone buzzed again. This time a text. From my brother. We need to talk. I read it. Didn't respond. Another message followed. It's about Grandma's house. I looked at the words. Then at the document on the table. Then back at the phone. They already knew. Not the details. But enough. Information moves quickly in families. Especially when it threatens the balance they rely on. I set the phone down. Didn't pick it up again. Instead, I walked to the kitchen. Poured a glass of water. Took a sip. Let the quiet hold. Because this wasn't the moment to react. It was the moment to observe. That evening I drove by the house. Not to go in. Just to see it. The same siding. Same front steps. Same tree in the yard. Nothing had changed. That was the point. Structures don't show strain immediately. They hold. Until they don't. I stayed in the car for a few minutes. Watched the windows. Lights on in the kitchen. Movement inside. My brother's car in the driveway. My sister's too. They were already gathering. Already discussing. Already trying to place what had shifted. I didn't go inside. Not yet. Because walking in too early would turn this into a conversation. And it wasn't time for that. I drove away. Slowly. Not avoiding. Choosing. When I got back to my apartment, there was another message. This time from my sister. Can you call me? A pause. Please. I read it. Then set the phone down again. Because please doesn't erase structure. It signals change. But it doesn't define it. I went back to the table. Picked up the document. Read the last line again. You don't have to explain yourself to people who decided not to understand. I folded the paper. Placed it back into the envelope. Then I sat there. Not thinking about what I would say. Thinking about what I wouldn't. Because that mattered more now. The next move wasn't theirs. It was mine. And for the first time, they were waiting. I didn't answer that night. Not my brother. Not my sister. I let the phone sit where it was and turned the lamp off over the table. The apartment fell into a softer kind of dark, the kind that doesn't push you to move. Morning came without urgency. I made coffee the same way I always did, grounds measured, water just below boiling, no shortcuts. The routine steadied the space more than any decision could. When I picked up my phone, there were 5 new messages, all from family. None from my mother. I opened my brother's first. We need to go over the house. Then another. Mom says there's confusion about the paperwork. I read them once. Closed the thread. Opened my sister's. Can we meet just us? A pause in the text. I didn't know about yesterday. I held that for a moment. Then set the phone down. I finished my coffee. Washed the cup. Dried it. Put it back where it belonged. Only then did I reply. Not to my brother. To my sister. Meet at the diner on Maple. 11. No explanation. No follow-up. She responded in under a minute. Okay. The diner hadn't changed in years. Same booths. Same chrome edging. Same waitress who wrote orders on a pad even though they had a system now. I got there early. Chose a booth near the window. Ordered coffee. Black. No sugar. I watched the parking lot. Cars pulling in. People stepping out. Routine. Unremarkable. At 11:03, my sister's car turned in. She sat for a moment before getting out. Hands on the wheel. Looking straight ahead. Then she opened the door. Walked in. Saw me. Paused. Then came over. Hey, she said. Hey. She slid into the booth across from me. Didn't pick up a menu. Didn't look around. She looked at my face like she was checking for something she had missed. I'm sorry, she said. No preface. No build-up. I didn't answer. I let it sit. She nodded once, as if she expected that. I didn't know what Mom was going to say, she continued. A pause. And when she did, I just didn't step in. I watched her, not weighing the words, measuring the gap between them and what had already happened. You didn't, I said. She looked down at her hands, then back at me. She told us you were taking advantage, she said. A small pause. That you always had. I took a sip of coffee. Set the cup down. And you believed that I said? Not a question. She held my gaze. For a long time, yes. Honest. Not defensive. That mattered. What changed, I asked. She hesitated. Then said, The lawyer called this morning. There it was. I nodded. And she asked if we had received a copy, my sister said. A pause. Mom said we hadn't. I waited. She said it would be delivered this afternoon, she added. Another pause. And that we should be prepared. Prepared. I let the word settle. What do you think that means, I asked. My sister exhaled slowly. I think it means we're not getting what we thought, she said. I held her eyes. And what did you think you were getting? She didn't answer right away. Then she said, Equal share. A pause. Or at least something close. I nodded once. And now, she looked down again. Then back up. I don't know, she said. Honest again. Different from before. The waitress came by. Asked if we wanted anything else. We both said no. She left. The space between us stayed quiet. Not tense. Just recalibrating. Mom's not taking it well, my sister said. I almost smiled. Not out of satisfaction. Recognition. She won't, I replied. A pause. She doesn't like uncertainty. My sister nodded. She wants you to come by tonight, she said. I shook my head slightly. Number. Another pause. She said it's important. I met her eyes. It wasn't important 3 days ago, I said. Silence. She looked down. Then back up. I know. A pause. That's why I'm here. That landed differently. Because it wasn't about the house. It was about the shift. I reached into my bag. Took out the envelope. Set it on the table. Didn't open it. Didn't slide it toward her. Just placed it there. She looked at it. Didn't touch it. Is it true? She asked. I nodded. Yes. A pause. She left it to you. I didn't correct the phrasing. Not yet. In a way, I said. My sister swallowed. Then asked the question that mattered. What are you going to do? I held her gaze. Not long. Just enough. I'm going to follow what she asked, I said. A pause. Exactly. She nodded slowly, as if she expected that answer, as if part of her hoped for something else. Mom's going to push, she said. I picked up my coffee, took a sip. I know. Another pause. She already is. I glanced at my phone. A missed call. From my mother. I turned it face down. My sister watched that. Not the call. The choice. You're not going to call her back? She asked. I shook my head. Not today. Silence. Then she said something quieter. She's scared. I considered that. Then said, she's losing control. A pause. That's not the same thing. My sister didn't argue, because she knew the difference. We sat there a little longer. No rush. No urgency. Then she reached out. Not for the envelope. For my hand. She didn't pull it away. She just rested her fingers there. Light. Uncertain. I didn't move. I didn't pull back. But I didn't hold on either. After a moment, she let go. Not rejected. Just aware. I'll tell her you're not coming, she said. I nodded. Thank you. She stood. Paused. Then added, I didn't see it before. A small pause. I do now. I met her eyes. That's a start, I said. She nodded. Then she left. I stayed. Finished my coffee. Watched the parking lot again. Same cars. Same movement. But the structure had shifted. They were waiting now. Not deciding. Not directing. Waiting. And that was the first real change. I didn't go to the house that night. I waited until the next morning. Not to make a point. To remove the urgency they were trying to create. Control often hides inside timing. If you don't follow it, the structure changes. I arrived just after 9. Same driveway. Same front steps. Nothing about the place had changed. That was the first thing I noticed. The house didn't feel different. Only the way I approached it did. I knocked once. Not out of habit. Out of choice. My mother opened the door almost immediately. Like she had been standing there. Waiting. Her expression was composed. Too composed. You finally came, she said. I didn't answer. I stepped inside. Set my bag down near the wall. Same spot as before. She noticed that. I saw it in the way her eyes moved. My brother was in the living room. Standing. Not sitting. My sister stood near the kitchen doorway. Not hiding. But not central. Positions matter. They tell you what people think their role is. Sit, my mother said. Not a request. I walked to the dining table. Pulled out a chair. Saturday. They followed. My mother across from me. My brother to her right. My sister to the side. The same structure as every family dinner we had ever had. But nothing about it was the same. My mother placed a folder on the table. Opened it. Turned it toward me. We received this morning, she said. I looked at it. Didn't touch it. I assumed you did, I replied. A pause. Her eyes flicked up. Not expecting that. You've read it, she asked. Yes. Silence. My brother shifted his weight. Hands in his pockets. Then out again. So you understand, he said. I looked at him. I do. A pause. Then we need to talk about how we handle this, he added. I didn't respond immediately. Then I said, there's nothing to handle. My mother's hand moved slightly on the table. A small adjustment. That's not realistic, she said. A pause. This affects all of us. I held her gaze. It doesn't, I replied. It affects what she left. Silence. That landed. Not loudly. But clearly. My mother leaned forward. This house has always been a family asset, she said. Your grandmother would have wanted it to stay that way. I watched her. Carefully. Then I said, she was very clear about what she wanted. A pause. That's why it's written. My brother stepped in then. Closer to the table. Look, we're not trying to take anything from you, he said. A pause. We just think it should be fair. There it was. Fair. The word people use when the structure doesn't benefit them anymore. I nodded once. What does fair look like to you, I asked. He hesitated. Then said, equal share. I held his eyes. Based on what I asked. Silence. My mother answered instead. Because we're family, she said. I leaned back slightly. Let the space open. 3 days ago, I said. I wasn't. The room shifted. My sister looked down. My brother exhaled slowly. My mother didn't move. That was different, she said. A pause. Emotions were high. I watched her. Not reacting. Just observing. You said I wasn't worth $1, I said. Calm. Flat. She didn't deny it. She didn't correct it. She just said, that's not what I meant. I nodded. Then what did you mean? Silence. She looked at the folder. Then back at me. We've all contributed to this house, she said. A pause. You haven't. I let that sit. Then I said, I spent every Thursday and Saturday there. A pause. For 2 years. My brother shifted again. That's not the same as paying for it, he said. I looked at him. You're right, I replied. It isn't. Silence. Then I added, it's what she asked for. That changed something. Not visibly, but structurally. Because now the conversation wasn't about value. It was about intention. My mother picked up the document. Flipped through it. As if looking for something she had missed. There's no reason this can't be adjusted, she said. A pause. We can come to an agreement. I met her eyes. There already is one, I said. Another silence. Longer this time. My brother stepped back. Ran a hand over his face. This isn't how families work, he said. I looked at him. No, I replied. It's how decisions work. That landed harder. Because it removed the emotion. Left only structure. My mother's voice softened slightly. Not warmth. Strategy. We're just asking you to consider everyone, she said. A pause. To do the right thing. I held her gaze. And for a moment I saw it clearly. Not anger. Not grief. Control. Measured. Maintained. I reached into my bag. Took out the envelope. Set it on the table. Opened it. Pulled out the second page. Turned it toward them. Read the last paragraph, I said. My mother didn't move at first. Then she reached forward. Took the page. Read. Her expression didn't change immediately. But her hand did. A slight tightening. My brother leaned in. Read over her shoulder. My sister didn't move. She already knew. Silence settled over the table. Different now. Not uncertain. Defined. My mother placed the paper back down. Carefully. Then looked at me. She didn't trust us, she said. I shook my head. She understood you, I replied. A pause. That's not the same thing. No one spoke after that. Because there was nothing left to argue. The structure had been set long before this room. And for the first time, they felt it. No one raised their voice after that. That was the part that changed. The room didn't break into argument. It settled. Not into agreement. Into recognition. My mother closed the folder. Aligned the edges with a care that had nothing to do with organization. It was something she did when she needed time. We need to think about this, she said. A pause. Properly. I nodded. Take your time. My brother looked at me. Then at the document. Then back at me. You're not even going to discuss it, he asked. I held his gaze. There's nothing unclear, I said. Silence. He stepped away from the table. Walked to the window. Looked out. Hands on his hips. He wasn't angry. He was adjusting. That's a different kind of discomfort. My sister stayed where she was. Still. Watching. Not intervening. But not avoiding either. My mother spoke again. Her voice quieter now. Not soft. Measured. If we're going to move forward, she said, we need to be practical. I didn't respond immediately. Then I said, practical is following what's written. She looked at me. A longer look this time, trying to find the version of me she had been speaking to for years. It wasn't there. That was the problem. Your grandmother didn't mean for this to divide us, she said. I considered that. Then answered. She meant for it to be clear. A pause. Division was already here. Silence. My brother turned back from the window. What are you planning to do with the house, he asked. The question came out direct. Not wrapped. That was new. I appreciated it. I'm going to keep it, I said. A pause. And manage it. He frowned slightly. What does that mean? It means decisions go through me, I replied. Another pause. Maintenance, access, use. I didn't rush the words. I let them land one at a time. My mother's fingers tapped once on the table. A small controlled movement. You're not moving back in, she said. Not a question. A test. No, I replied. Then why keep it, my brother asked. I looked at him. Because she asked me to, I said. Silence. He nodded once. Not agreement. Acknowledgement. That answer didn't give him anything to argue with. My mother shifted slightly in her chair. We've lived here for years, she said. A pause. This is our home. I met her eyes. And it still is, I replied. Another pause. Nothing in the document asks you to leave. That changed something. Not relief, but a recalculation. Because now the threat wasn't removal. It was control. Subtle, but real. My sister spoke then. Quiet. Then what changes, she asked. I looked at her. Then at the table. Then back at her. Clarity, I said. A pause. Expectations. She nodded slowly, as if she already understood what that meant. My brother didn't. He leaned forward again. What kind of expectations, he asked. I reached into my bag, took out a small notebook, opened it. Not prepared in advance. Just structured. I'll handle property taxes, I said. A pause. Major repairs will need approval. I glanced at my mother. Any financial decisions tied to the house go through me. Silence. My brother shook his head slightly. This is ridiculous, he said. I looked at him. No, I replied. It's defined. A pause. That's different. He didn't answer, because he felt the difference. My mother's voice softened again. More carefully this time. We can't live like tenants, she said. I held her gaze. You're not, I replied. You're living in the house the same way you did before. A pause. Just with the structure acknowledged. Silence. That was the line. Not emotional. Not aggressive. Just firm. My sister exhaled slowly. Looked at my mother. Then back at me. This isn't going to go away, she said. I nodded. Number. Another pause. It's not supposed to. My mother leaned back. Finally. Not defeated. Repositioned. I don't agree with this, she said. I nodded. You don't have to. A pause. It's already in place. Silence. Longer this time. No one moved. No one filled it. Because there was nothing left to negotiate. The structure held. And they knew it. After a while, my brother picked up the folder. Closed it. Set it down. Carefully. Like something that could break if handled wrong. I guess we'll figure it out, he said. Not convinced. But not fighting. I stood. Not abruptly. Just enough to signal the end. I'm sure you will, I replied. A pause. If you have questions, you can reach out. I didn't look at my phone. Didn't offer more. Just left the option. My sister stood too. Walked with me to the door. Not saying anything. Just accompanying. At the doorway, she paused. You're not trying to hurt anyone, she said. Not a question. I shook my head. Number. A pause. I'm just not stepping back. She nodded. Understood. Because she had seen the difference now. I picked up my bag. Opened the door. Stepped outside. The same driveway. The same tree. The same house. But the way it held people inside had changed. Not visibly. Structurally. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was leaving. I felt like I was choosing where I stood. The calls slowed down after that. Not stopped. Just changed. My brother texted instead of calling. Short messages. Practical. Questions about the property tax bill. A note about the furnace making a sound. No language about fairness. No references to family. That was the first shift. My sister sent one message in the evenings. Simple. Updates. Not requests. Just contact. My mother didn't reach out at all. That didn't surprise me. She wasn't someone who adjusted quickly. She waited. Measured. Then spoke when she believed the ground had stabilized enough to hold her position. 3 days passed. Then 5. On the 6th day she called. I let it ring once, twice. Then I answered. Hello. A pause on the line. Then her voice. Controlled. Are you busy? I glanced at the table. At the envelope still sitting where I had left it. No, I said. Another pause. I'd like to talk, she said. I didn't respond immediately. Then I said, okay. She exhaled softly. Not relief. Preparation. Not about the house, she added. I almost smiled. Not because I believed her. Because I recognized the approach. Then what about, I asked? A longer pause this time. You, she said. The word sat differently. Not sharp. Not defined. Uncertain. I'm listening, I replied. Silence stretched. Then she said something she hadn't said before. I didn't handle the funeral well. I didn't answer. I let the sentence exist without response. She continued. I was upset, she said. A pause. And I said things that weren't accurate. I leaned back slightly. Not relaxing. Positioning. You were clear, I said. Not harsh. Just precise. Another silence. Then she said, that's not what I meant. I held the phone slightly away from my ear. Not to distance. To hear the tone more clearly. What did you mean, I asked. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, I felt like you were taking something that wasn't yours. There it was again. Ownership. Defined by her. I considered that. Then said, she asked me to be there. A pause. That made it mine. Silence. She didn't interrupt. That was new. I didn't see it that way, she said. I nodded even though she couldn't see it. I know. Another pause. I see it differently now, she added. I didn't respond. Because I wasn't sure yet what that meant. There's a difference between seeing and accepting. She spoke again. I read the letter, she said. A pause. All of it. I closed my eyes briefly. Not emotional. Just steadying. And I asked. She was very intentional, my mother said. I opened my eyes. Yes. Another silence. Then she said something quieter. I didn't expect that. I leaned forward slightly. What did you expect, I asked. Her answer came slower. Something more balanced. I nodded. Balanced how? She exhaled. Including everyone. There it was. Not fairness. Inclusion. Different word. Same structure. I let it sit. Then said, she included everyone. A pause. Just not in the way you wanted. Silence. Longer this time. Then she said, I suppose that's true. That was the second shift. Not agreement. Recognition. It didn't sound like much. But it was. I don't want this to damage things, she said. Careful now. Measured. I held the phone still. Things were already damaged, I replied. A pause. This just made it visible. She didn't argue. Because she couldn't. Is there a way to move forward, she asked. The question was quieter than anything else she had said. Not controlled. Not positioned. Open. I considered it. Not quickly. Then I said, there is. Silence. Waiting. We respect what she decided, I continued. A pause. And we don't rewrite it. Another pause. And we stop pretending the past didn't happen. The line stayed. She didn't respond immediately. Then she said, that might take time. I nodded. I'm not in a hurry. Silence. Then she said, I'd like to see you. I thought about that. Not the request. The timing. Not yet, I said. A pause. But soon. She accepted that. I heard it in the way her breathing changed. Okay, she said. No argument. No push. We stayed on the line for a moment, neither speaking. Then she said, Thank you for answering. I nodded. You're welcome. We ended the call. I set the phone down, looked at the envelope again. Still there. Still unchanged. That was the point. Nothing about what had been decided shifted because of conversation. Only the way people approached it. Later that week I went back to the house again. Not for a meeting. Not for a discussion. Just to check something. The front door was unlocked. I stepped inside. The house was quiet. Different from before. Not tense. Not waiting. Just occupied. My brother was in the kitchen. He looked up when I entered. Nodded. No surprise. No resistance. Hey, he said. Hey. I walked in. Set my bag down. Same spot. He noticed. Didn't comment. Furnace is making that sound again, he said. I nodded. I'll have someone look at it. A pause. Thanks. He didn't say more. Didn't try to reopen anything. That was the third shift. We were no longer negotiating identity. We were managing structure. My sister came in a few minutes later. Smiled slightly. Not forced. Real. Hi, she said. Hi. We stood there for a moment. Not awkward. Just aware. The house hadn't changed. But the way we stood inside it had, and for the first time, it felt like something could hold. Not perfectly. Not completely. But enough. I didn't move back into the house. That was a decision I made before anyone asked. Not because I couldn't. Because I didn't need to. Control doesn't require proximity. It requires clarity. I kept my apartment. Kept my routine. Visited when there was something to handle. Left when there wasn't. No lingering. No searching for a version of belonging that had already been defined differently. The house stayed occupied. My brother adjusted first. He started sending updates without being asked. Short. Specific. The gutter needs cleaning. The back step is loose. No explanations. No framing. Just information. I responded the same way. Schedule it. I'll cover the cost. Nothing more. We found a rhythm inside that. Not warm. Not cold. Functional. My sister followed. Less structured. More present. She'd text in the evenings. How are you? Sometimes I answered. Sometimes I didn't. She stopped expecting immediate replies. That mattered. Expectation is where pressure lives. When it fades, something else can take its place. My mother took longer. She didn't come to the house when I was there at first. Or maybe she timed it. I didn't ask. Then one afternoon she was in the kitchen when I walked in. No warning. No message. Just there. She turned when she heard the door. Paused. Then said, You came by. Not surprised. Just acknowledging. Yes. I set my bag down. Same spot. She noticed. Of course she did. I was making tea, she said. A pause. Would you like some? I looked at her. Not at the kettle. At the offer. Okay, I said. She turned back to the stove. Poured water into 2 cups. No rush. No performance. Just movement. She handed one to me. Our fingers didn't touch. That was deliberate. We stood at the counter. Not sitting. Not positioning. Just standing. It's quiet, she said. I nodded. It is. A pause. She stirred her tea. Slow. Careful. I've been thinking about what you said, she added. I didn't answer. I let her continue. About not rewriting things she said. Another pause. I don't like that it's true. I took a sip. Set the cup down. It doesn't have to be comfortable, I said. A small silence followed. Not heavy. Just honest. She nodded once. Then looked at the table. Then back at me. I didn't see what you were doing with her, she said. Quiet. Measured. With your grandmother. I held her gaze. You didn't look, I replied. No accusation. Just fact. She accepted that. Not with words. With stillness. I thought showing up meant something else, she said. A pause. Something more visible. I nodded. That's what you value, I said. She didn't argue. Because she knew it was true. Another silence. Then she said, she trusted you. Not a question. I nodded. Yes. A pause. I didn't understand why. I looked at the cup in my hands. Then back at her. She explained it, I said. She did. My mother exhaled slowly. Set her spoon down. I read that part twice, she said. A faint shift in her voice. Not emotion. Recognition. I didn't expect her to say those things about you. I didn't respond. Because it wasn't about what she expected. It was about what had always been there. I was wrong, she said. The words came out quietly. Without emphasis. Without framing. I looked at her. Not searching for more. Not asking for explanation. Just receiving. Yes, I said. A pause. But you were consistent. That mattered more. She nodded. I was. Another pause. I don't know how to fix that. I picked up my tea. Took a sip. Then set it down again. You don't fix it, I said. You adjust. Silence. She let that settle. Then she said, I'd like to try. I held her gaze. That's up to you, I replied. No reassurance. No rejection. Just space. We stood there a little longer. Then she said, I'll be here later this week. A pause. If you come by? I nodded. Okay. She didn't say more. Neither did I. Because the structure didn't need more language. It needed time. And consistency. Over the next few weeks, things didn't change dramatically. They shifted. Gradually. My brother stopped using phrases like we should. He started asking, Can we? My sister came by my apartment once. Brought groceries. Not as a gesture. As something normal. We sat at the table. Talked about nothing important. That was new. My mother called occasionally. Short conversations. No attempts to control direction. Just presence. That was the biggest change. Not what she said. What she didn't try to shape. The house remained where it was. The tree in the yard shed leaves slowly. The siding faded in the same places. Nothing about the structure changed physically. But the way it held us did. If you've ever been in a place where your value was measured by what people could see, by what you produced in ways they understood, by how well you fit inside a structure they never questioned, you don't have to argue your way out of it. You don't have to convince anyone. You let the truth sit where it's been placed. You let people come to it. Or not. Because once something is defined clearly, it doesn't need your voice to stay in place. It holds. Quietly. Completely. And you get to decide where you stand in relation to it. Not by reaction. By choice.